Earlier this week, the president's office made official that Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is coming to South Korea on Sunday for summit talks with President Yoon Suk Yeol. Now, for this weekend's weekly focus, we take a closer look at what to expect from the Yoon Kishida summit with our foreign affairs correspondent, Choi Min-jung. Welcome back, Min-jung.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, Min-jung. First off, the trip is largely anticipated to mark the official resumption of direct diplomacy between the two nations. Now, first off, why is this so significant?
Well, if we go back to March, the South Korean government compared the Seoul-Tokyo relations to a glass of water, saying that it was half full. This was when President Yoon visited Tokyo for summit talks with the Japanese Prime Minister. It was also when the two leaders were able to mend sour ties as Yoon proposed a plan to compensate the Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor through a third party without contributions from Japanese companies. And since then, much progress has been made to normalize ties. South Korea fully restored its military intelligence sharing pact with Tokyo, also known as GSOMIA, while Japan put South Korea back on its white list of trusted trading partners. The two countries this week held their first finance leaders meeting in 7 years, and Japan's national security advisor came to South Korea to prepare for the summit and conveyed that Kishida's visit is a way to show gratitude for Yoon's, quote, courageous decision to improve relations with Japan. And now we will have to see if the half-full glass will slowly fill up. South Korea and Japan both said Kishida's upcoming visit would mark the resumption of regular visits to each other's countries, or what they have been calling shuttle diplomacy. Progress is being made rather quickly as the summit was anticipated to take place around the summer, but it's actually taking place less than 2 months after Yoon visited Japan. The upcoming visit will also be the first by a Japanese prime minister for a bilateral meeting in 12 years. And talking to reporters earlier on Tuesday, the Japanese leader said the summit will be a good opportunity to exchange honest opinions on ways to develop Seoul-Tokyo relations.
I expect it will be a great opportunity to give impetus to our shuttle diplomacy and have a heart-to-heart exchange of our views on accelerating Japan-South Korea ties and drastically changing the global situation.
Right, reciprocal visits in just 2 months from both sides. Now, South Korea and Japan do seem to be on the right track in terms of moving forward. Then, what are some of the key items on the agenda of the summit that we can expect this weekend?
Right. Well, a presidential official said that there are many pending issues, but the most important are cooperation in security and the economy. The leaders are expected to discuss ways to strengthen their security cooperation to counter growing threats from North Korea. They're also likely to agree on the need to boost trilateral cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. Kyodo News also reported that security cooperation against Pyongyang will be accelerated during the summit. As for economic cooperation, Japan recently lifted export curbs on South Korea, and sources are saying that Kishida will meet with South Korean business leaders to discuss ways to enhance economic exchanges between the two countries. So we are sensing a more future-oriented discussion, but here in Korea, eyes are on whether Kishida will offer a sincere apology from Japan for the use of forced labor during its occupation of Korea.
Right, Min-jung. But the thing is, the Korean public can help but focus on the past involving Japan's wartime forced labor. Can we expect any progress on this during the summit this weekend?
Right. The public opinion in South Korea right now is that Japan's response with regard to this matter has not been enough. During the Seoul-Tokyo summit in March, Kishida confirmed that he upholds historical perceptions of previous Japanese governments, which includes Japan's apology for its colonization of Korea in the Joint Declaration of 1998. However, he did not repeat the statements word for word, nor did he offer a sincere apology. But Seoul's presidential office said that it would be difficult to expect a forward-looking attitude for now because diplomacy has just been restored and more trust needs to be built. Earlier on, South Korea's national security advisor also refrained from giving a clear stance and rather stressed the importance of balance between the past and present. Prior to the summit, President Yoon also stressed that South Korea and Japan must join forces as partners pursuing common interests based on common values and underlined the importance of exchanges between young generations of the two countries in preparation for the future. So the overall mood is that rather than receiving an immediate favorable response from Japan on issues in the past, the presidential office seems likely to focus on accelerating the process of improving Seoul-Tokyo relations and further strengthening cooperation with the U.S. and Japan.
Now, speaking of cooperation with the U.S. and Japan, Kishida's Seoul trip comes ahead of a possible summit between the leaders of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo in Hiroshima. That's where the G7 will take place, right?
Right. Kishida invited Yoon to the G7 summit back in March, and it's still being arranged, but the three nations are expected to hold a summit in Hiroshima and once again reaffirm their commitment to deepening their partnership against North Korea's nuclear threats. The latest developments come at a much-needed time for the allies as tensions continue to grow against not just North Korea, but China and Russia as well. Pyongyang, Beijing, and Moscow strongly criticized Yoon and Biden's recent signing of the Washington Declaration, and Beijing's Global Times reported that once Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington's cooperation expands further and targets China and Russia, it will not only break the current balance of power, but China and Russia will take corresponding precautions and even countermeasures. It also warned that South Korea will only degrade its own position in Asia by taking the side of the U.S. and Japan.
Right, we're only into the first week of May, but already so many events, even summits on the diplomatic front.
Right, we'll have to see how things will unfold in the geopolitical scene.
All right, Min-jung, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio today again.
My pleasure.